The attack against an Imperial convoy has turned up a surprise.
Hello everyone, I'm back with another guide for X-Wing 94. My original guide involves a longer solution to tweaking the game. However, there is an easier way to achieve those results with something called DOSBox Community Edition. It's an awesome program and I definitely recommend people should try using it. This program, which I will go into a little more detail, is a simpler solution compared to modifying everything manually like you saw in my last video if you've seen it, and the results are slightly better. Plus, it's easier to plug in other DOS era games all into this one program, much like a mod manager. I think it's one of the best ways to actually get people playing retro games like DOS era games without having to deal with all the hassle of editing a bunch of different files and everything like that. So what you'll need for this tutorial are the following. Make sure you have a copy of X-Wing from Steam or GOG, and then you need to download the DOSBox Community Edition. The links will be in the description. And then you download some SoundFonts as well. Those links will be in the description as well. If you don't want to download any of these separately, I will also include an all-in-one download to make it easier for you. It was originally compiled courtesy of Phil's Computer Lab, while I simply added to it. And the original DOSBox is simply a program that emulates an old DOS PC, while the Community Edition differs from the normal DOSBox that GOG or Steam provide because it adds support for emulating the 3D Voodoo graphics card. It has pixel perfect scaling, which is a great and much better solution that I've seen. It just makes the game look very, very close to how it should have looked originally. And then it has improved OPL3 and emulation of the Roland MT32 MIDI synthesizer and a lot more. I can definitely do a video in the future on all the features of DOSBox Community Edition if people want me to. But other than that, we'll just move on to the steps in the guide. Starting with step 1, like my previous guide, first you actually need to install the game and then launch it at least once in order to set your calibration. Then after that, you simply close the game. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'll show you that on screen. So I have GOG open here, and this works with Steam as well. But just go ahead and launch the 94 version. And then once the game launches, you can just skip past the cutscenes by pressing enter. And then you'll be at the calibration screen. So you just need to follow the prompts on the screen, center the joystick and press the button, and then move it to the top left and press a button on the joystick. And then move it to the bottom right and press button, and then center it and press the button. So now we're in the game itself and you can actually see how it looks and sounds. So this is what it's going to look like when you use the DOSBox Community Edition, but I can also show differences as well. But for now, let's just close the game after we get to this point. Okay, and then moving on to step 2, we're going to install SoundFonts with DOSBox Community Edition. We're going to be installing some custom SoundFonts called Weeds GM, the same as my previous guide. And if you are just downloading the all-in-one that I included, just move on to step 3. But if you want to do this manually, then keep following with step 2 here. And where you download these SoundFonts will be from Phil's Computer Lab. You just go to Software, Audio Software, and then General, MIDI, and SoundFonts. And then on his site, you can see the files here. Now with the DOSBox Community Edition, I don't know if it lets you use both like the CoolSoft Virtual MIDI Synth does. And then once you've actually downloaded that and you have downloaded the DOSBox launcher and extracted it to your desktop, you're going to go into that folder, and then you're going to go into the DOS root, MIDI stuff, and then the SoundFonts. So this is where you're going to place the Weeds GM SoundFonts, and that's all you need to do for this step. All right, moving on to step 3, we're going to open up DOSBox Community Edition itself to look at the settings, and I'll explain everything that I set up in the all-in-one that I provided, and then we can launch the game from there. So once you have extracted the DOSBox Launcher Community Edition, open up the folder and then click on the launch.exe. I'll bring it over on the screen here so you can see what it looks like. So I have already set up a profile for the X-Wing 94 version right here. So you can edit some of these settings that I will talk about yourself if you want to, but it's just going to be a lot easier to launch the program. There's only one little modification that you need to do to the one that I provide in order for you to use it with your installation of X-Wing, and I will explain that. So DOSBox Community Edition allows you to create convenient profiles for each different game you own. As you can see here, like I already said, I have the X-Wing profile set up, and that's in the all-in-one download that I have provided, and it has everything set up, including the better general MIDI music like from my previous guide. The sound fonts are in there as well, and it also has the pixel perfect solution, which is different than the solution I had in my previous guide. So we're going to take a quick look by selecting the X-Wing Collector CD, and then you click on Edit Profile. So basically all you're doing with my provided one is going over to the Mounting tab, and then you change these three pathways to wherever you installed the game from the Steam or GOG versions. So to do that, first go to the image mount D, click on it, and then click on Edit. So in here, this directory right here is going to be wherever you installed it. This is where it installs by default for me, but the important part is you need to put the slash and then game.ins at the end. And then once you have done that, you just go ahead and click OK. And then this also you need to change, highlight it, click on Edit, and then you can go ahead and copy paste wherever your directory actually is, and then click OK again. And then again here you need to change this to that same folder, and then the bwing.exe should already be in there. So all you're really doing is copying this directory right here into this place. So make sure it looks the same as that, and then you can click on OK. And then once you've actually completed all of that, all you have to do is double click on X-Wing Collector CD itself, and then the game just launches. So let's go ahead and do that now, and I'll show you. And with the game launched, we can just skip past the cutscenes again. And then you'll need to do this every time that the game loads. And now you're in the game. So all you would do at this point is select your profile and enter. And at this point you can skip to the last step in this guide where we actually just configure the hat switch again. So that's all you would need to do if you're just doing the all-in-one that I provide. But if you want to do this manually, I will keep explaining in this step how to do that, and we'll exit the game at this point so I can show you. Okay, so if you're still following along in step 3 and you want to do this manually, we'll do that right now. And I'm just providing this just in case someone does ask how to do that, so I'm just preemptively putting it in the guide, and then we can go a little more in depth as well. So to do this, go back to the profiles screen and then click on Add Profile. And then here you can just name it whatever you want. We'll just name it X-Wing, and then you keep it open, and then we're going to continue on and customize the rest of the settings. Move over to the General tab, and here it lets you select the DOSBox version. Just keep it as the release 4178. I have found that works the best with X-Wing. I had problems trying to get it to run with the other release of the Community Edition, so just leave it on that. And then for the template, you are going to select max speed with Sound Blaster 16 and general MIDI font. and then go ahead and go to the display section. And this is where you will change the graphics and everything like that. It should default to the output surface PP, which is just the pixel perfect. Make sure you have it selected, and then everything else will need to look like this. So the scaler needs to be on 2x or the pixel perfect will not work. The pixel perfect is programmed to work with the normal 2x. That's just how it works. And then you need to set the full screen to desktop or whatever you want, and then the resolution, or the window resolution, sorry, to 800 times 600. Select full screen, and then the aspect correction, make sure that is selected as well. All right, now moving on to the machine tab, you'll want the selections that you see here already. You don't want to change anything in here but the cycles. I use cycles 8500, and this is a fixed value, but you may need to change this depending on your own system. But again, in game, you can also use Control F11 or Control F12 to decrease or increase this value, which is kind of convenient. And then now we'll go on to the audio tab. Okay, in the audio tab, all you need to do is make sure the sample rate is at 4800. It should be that by default. And then the MPU 401 should be at intelligent already. And this is where you can change the MIDI device. You can leave it on the Roland 32 if you want to see what it sounds like. And I could probably show in this video what that sounds like compared to general MIDI. But essentially, the collector CD version of this game only used general MIDI tracks, but the floppy disk version actually did use MT32. I don't think MT32 sounds very good with the collector CD version, but I mean, that's completely up to you. If you want to leave it as that, you can. But for the purpose of this guide, you're going to change it to the fluidsynth, which is the general MIDI. And then everything else here, you're going to change the Sound Blaster section type to SB16, which is Sound Blaster 16. I have found that if you leave it on this, the game just doesn't work at all. So just make sure you put it on that. And then the OPL rate will be 4800, and then you can leave all these other values how they are here. And then we're going to go on to the experimental options, and this is where you change the sound fonts. You can either use this one here, which is provided with the Community Edition by Phil's Computer Lab, but we can also change this to the weeds as well. So go ahead and open up the directory again and go back to DOS root, MIDI stuff, sound fonts, and then highlight this and press F2 and then copy the entire thing. And for a lot of people, I'm assuming they won't have the folder options setting where they can see the file types, but that's fine. Just copy the name of the file and then go back to your screen here for the profile, highlight that, and then paste it. And if you did not have the folder option where you can see the file type, you might need to type in .sf2. So just make sure the sample rate is 4800, and all this other stuff you can keep right here. And then we're going to go over to the joystick settings, or the IO section. Make sure the type of joystick is FCS, and that just stands for Thrustmaster. So that's all you need to do in this section, and then we'll go on to the mounting section. Okay, in the mounting section, you'll already see mounting for the games folder, which is just directing to the games folder inside the DOSBox launcher. But go ahead and remove that. Just click on or highlight it, and then click on remove, and then we're going to click on add. And then in this screen where it says add mount point, highlight the mount images or click on the bullet next to that. And then in here, you're going to type in the following. Now this whole directory here is going to be dependent on where you installed the game. I'm just showing this as an example, so I have installed my game into this directory by default. And then the important part is you put the /game.ins at the end of this. Make sure ISO is selected, and that's all you have to do here. Click on OK. And then down in the main section, you're going to put in that same directory name, but at the end of it, you're going to put bwing.exe. And then once you actually click OK, you should get a warning prompt. It'll say, would you like to add the mount location to the directory for that game? Click on yes. And then you should get this prompt as well where it says, please choose what to do with the newly chosen DOSBox version. Either set it, switch to it, or reload to its defaults. And then just click on set, and then click on OK, and then you have your brand new profile, and then you should be able to launch the game from there. All right, now for the very last step, we're going to run the game itself, and we're doing this so we can actually set up the joystick buttons, and you can mess around with the keyboard options if you want to after you watch this video. So when you are in the game, all you're going to do is go to the pilot proving grounds. Skip past all the cutscenes. And then go ahead and enter the maze. And now we're in the game itself, and you can see how it runs. If it's running really smooth, then you probably have the CPU cycles at a good value. If you don't, you can definitely change that with the Control F11 and F12. But what we're going to do now is just pause your game, and we're going to access the DOSBox key mapper. To do that, use Control F1 on your keyboard, and that will bring up your DOSBox key mapper. And what we are primarily looking for is the numpad. And we're going to change the keys on here so you can actually use your hat switch. To do that, click on where it says the number 8 and then click on add. And then all you do is press forward on your hat switch. And that will be to change the view in game to forward. And then go ahead and click on number 4, click on add, and then press left on the hat switch. And then to look right in game, you're going to click on number 6, click add, and press right on the hat switch. And then finally, to look behind you in game in the cockpit, you're going to click on the number 2, click add, and then press down on your hat switch. So that's all you need to do as far as the hat switch, and then go ahead and click save. If you have no idea what any of these keys do in game, definitely download the manual for this game. It should come with either the Steam or the GOG version, and you can look through that because this game has a ton of keys that you need to memorize, and I definitely recommend doing that before you start playing the game. Typically, I don't set anything else to my keyboard and simply use the joystick in my right hand, and I use the throttle keys on the keyboard itself because this game doesn't really support an analog throttle functionality. I mean, you can set the axes for the throttle with the key mapper, but in game, when you are changing the throttle, it'll constantly make a noise, and it's just really irritating, especially if you need to record this game. So it's going to be completely up to you. Okay, once you click exit, you'll be back in the game, and you can actually test out the hat switch just to make sure it works. So I'm looking left, now I'm looking right, now I'm looking behind me, I can see my R2 unit there, and then once again I can switch to forward. So yeah, that is it. That's all you need to do as far as the best settings.
Shuttle departing.